Oops, we were muted. Sorry about that. So
It's
every
all
time
good.
when we get into things, we'll accidentally have mic, muted mics. But welcome everybody to another live chat. Tonight we are with Rob Pollock from Robbie's. How are you doing this evening, Rob?
Good, good. I'm pretty excited to be here. I was binge watching some of your content earlier on. Looks like you've got some pretty sweet stuff going on. Some pretty interesting topics, pretty broadly spread across the board. The Russians, the incubators, all kind of stuff you're kind of getting into here recently.
Yeah, it's definitely fun to cover all that different beekeeping equipment, beekeeping topics, talking with guests like you and other people. So
Hmm.
it's definitely fun. I really enjoy it, and I'm glad everybody else enjoys it as well. Before we get into any further discussion and topics that I want to discuss tonight, I was wondering if you would briefly share us. Many people probably know who you are, but for people who don't know who you are, I was wondering if you could quickly share us who you are. Maybe what's kind of going on in your apiary and kind of how you got into bees and that kind of thing, if you would.
Sure. So my name's Rob Pollock. I own Larabi's. We primarily sell oxalic acid vaporizers. That was not where we started as a company. When we first started, I started with one colony because we needed blackberries. We needed pollination for our blackberries up at my grandfather's house. Probably, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago at this point. And basically, one just led to four, I think, by the next season. And in that season, I was doing grafting and stuff and grew it. As I grew, I learned that I was outgrowing my pan style vaporizer. And I didn't like what was on the market for the price point it was. So I started tinkering. And that's just kind of how it was born. So it was kind of born out of necessity. And we just haven't stopped innovating and trying things. So now we carry the instant VAP, which comes from Hungary, and I've transitioned some of my spare time in developing other products for other beekeeping companies to help push more engineering need uh, into the beekeeping world. So it's been pretty fun. I've got a couple of other projects that I've been working on to help other small operations like myself be successful in the bee community.
Yeah, I've definitely been. I saw the new Instavap on the market, and it looked pretty cool. It looked very simple, with a battery. I really do like those vaporizers because they're pretty easy. You know, because there's that's one of the cheapest on the market, like you said. So I think that's very good, something good to go into and be able to figure that kind of stuff out.
Yeah, the instant VAP is definitely an investment. I've heard several people say that they've done several thousand treatments in a round with them. Uh,
Yeah,
they've got large chargers and generators and big commercial operations.
yeah,
But doing 4,000 treatments in a weekend, doing 4,000 treatments in general with the device is for most beekeepers, a decade or two worth of service. Um, and that person in particular said that they were doing that weekend after weekend after weekend there for a while out in California. So, um, they are an investment. They are not a super cheap product, but it is a
yeah,
quality mark. I'm really picky with tools, and I believe it's a good investment for people. And so far, it's been holding true to that.
yeah. Definitely, especially because you can stick it in front of your hive, or the back of your hive,
Hmm.
and because I was watching videos about it, and it looked very interesting. At some point, I'm going to try to get one in the near future. Probably not big enough. yet for it. Maybe in the near future,
Mhm.
definitely want to try it. That's definitely something that is very worth trying. Definitely a good thing to try other things, trying how everything works. I think the InstaVap and your other vaporizers are very useful for that matter.
Mhm.
Next, I wanted to quickly talk about. So I was looking on your website, Rob, and I saw that you had, the new InstaVap, which takes a battery, but
Mhm.
you're one that, the original one. Who created that? Are you the one who created
So
that
so
one?
I was the one who created that one. Um, that was where we started, which is what's called the original on the website. So that was kind of the first iteration of it. We then progressed to the macro with the larger stem, and it goes through the bottom, and that tended to be what more people were after.
Yeah,
And then when the instant map came along and you could do both of them, uh, excuse me, either the front or the back, it really was a game changer, along with the portability. And there's a couple other um, design modifications that make it very efficient compared to the wall powered units. But the wall powered units, if you only have a few hives and you can reach them with an extension cord from your house and you don't have to buy an inverter or a generator or something, they're pretty
yeah,
cost effective in all reality.
yeah,
There definitely is a place for them in the market still.
yeah, definitely, exactly. Especially if you're a smaller beekeeper and your apiary is real close to your house, and the one that plugs into the wall will work just for you. But if you're like a
Hmm.
commercial, maybe a sideliner beekeeper, maybe you have 50, 100 halves, it's gonna be difficult going into your yard with extension cords one by one, untangling the extension cords.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
the new model with the battery, powered is very, very, good, very useful tool in that
Hmm.
matter, especially, just so it all depends on your size and all that, different stuff. But which one do you prefer? Do you like the battery operator? Do you like the one that y'all made?
So I'm very biased as far as portability with the instant vat because I have an out yard. It makes it easy, as well as I run primarily Apame now. I've converted a lot of my yards over to that as an investment for the business. Um, and it's been a pretty good move. Now the instant vap, we've got some insulators. I thought I had one on my desk here, but we've got little insulators that'll go in the stem of them, and that's all it takes to treat the apame colonies.
Yeah,
Um, so I lean nowadays more towards the instant vap because of portability and because of the insulators. But I mean, our wall before the instant vap came along, I had adapter plates for the apame hives with our original
yeah,
unit, and that's what I ran. I had great success with it. So it's just like it's the evolution of things. There's a place like behind our shop. It is very easy to get an extension cord to because the bees are within. They're spaced off the back of the shop by 20 foot. I can get a 50-foot extension cord around and treat most of the bees in that yard. So it kind of depends.
yeah,
But yeah, they both have kind of a special place with me.
yeah. Like you just said, it all depends on size and how far your yards are. Because my yard's about, it's not really close to my house. It is in my front yard, but it's kind of off to the side.
Mm-hmm.
I could probably get a 50 foot, maybe 60 foot, I'd say, over to my yard, like in my videos. If I have to measure it sometimes just to see the perfect length, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
guessing it'd be around 50, 60 feet away from our house, or maybe even 70, because it's just kind of off the side
Yeah.
in the woods. That's kind of where we came up with the name Wildwoods Honeybee Farms, and that's just kind of how it came
Yeah.
up because our apiaries in the woods were in the country, and that thing is it's just very cool, to think about it,
Yeah.
because I really do like the vaporizers, because you do have the OA oxalic acid dribble method, but the OA is the OA vaporizer is the one that I really look forward to and seeing. I see a lot of people using it, so I think it's
Mhm.
pretty interesting.
So what do you do now for treatments?
Me, well, for the
Yep.
time being, I'm using like Apivar, and
Mhm.
I was trying out a little bit of Apigard and at some point I'm gonna try out some OA.
Abigard's the one that's like a gel kind of that goes on like an index card or something like that. I think Greg
That's right.
Burns
I got
uses
the
that.
Sachets. I got the Sachets, and I was using it while putting it in a hive, and maybe temps were right, but it just kind of like froze up, that kind of thing. Maybe that's normal. I've never used Apicard before,
Yeah, I
but
haven't either.
like I put it, you put it on the little index card, and then you put it in there. I put a little shim around it, but it started to kind of freeze up. Kind of, it looked kind of like sugar, like ice and sugar, or not ice and sugar, but water
Hmm.
and sugar. Then it kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, it thickened
crystallized
up.
and it thickened up, but
Hmm.
still, whenever it was a week later, it was all gone off of the thing. So they still tracked through the Apgar like it was supposed to. I wasn't able to put another because with the sachets, you put they're like these 4 packs. They're just for like small ones. I got that because that's the cheapest. You're
Hmm.
supposed to put 1 week on one index card, next week, then the next week, and then that last treatment you do it for 2 weeks, and then that kind of resembles a 5-6 week Apigard treatment. You know, I really do like Apivar because there's a lot of similarities and differences between the both. So I think that's
Now
something we could
refresh me
discuss.
on the Apivar. Is that the one that hangs between the frames?
Right?
Is that like the like
That's right.
plastic looking one that hangs?
That's right. It just kind of hangs through
Okay.
the frames. Epivar. I've been really liking that just because it's pretty simple. It's not really temperature sensitive. That leads me into a topic that I think maybe be discussed. That what are your favorite mite treatments? Like I know you like oxalic acid. Are there some other choices that you may like to
Yeah.
kind of
So
switch treatments and stuff?
so I have been toying with trying other ones, but the reality is I haven't needed to go to any other treatment methods. It's not that I'm opposed. Like they're like uh Apigard and Formic, they're those two are probably the two that I would go to. Apigard probably first. Um, but the my reality is I want as much seat time with these vaporizers as I can so that I'm aware from
Yeah,
a customer's perspective what they're doing, how they're interacting, that kind of thing. So I tend to do a lot more treatments than uh, people generally do. So I have really low mite numbers just because like I'll get a customer's unit that says it's acting up, like it's overheating or something like that with some of our other units, and I'll test it, and if it seems like it's doing good, my real test is go out and treat my bees.
yeah,
um, so if it's the right time of year and if the right constraints are made. um but I mean that's the reality, and that's what I do. So yeah, so it's been good to me. Not saying it's the right mixture for everybody. Not everybody puts that kind of extra treatments into their colonies, but so far it's been good to me. I haven't
yeah,
I haven't been in a position where OA wouldn't control any of my issues that I had. But like I said, I do a lot more treatments than most people do throughout the year. It's not just a winter knockback for me. I'll do between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I'll do spring treatments. I'll do just as I pull honey supers off, I'll hit them
yeah,
again right before we get into the fall flow. So there's a lot that goes into doing only OA if you're going to do it, and it takes a lot of legwork to do it.
yeah,
And for most people, that's not in the cards, and I 100% respect that. And OA is really good when you are, winter time. Your brood numbers are down a lot lower. You can spend less time doing treatments and being more effective. But the key part is bringing a healthy colony up to that point, because the bees can survive with the mites, they can't survive with the virus. So that's really
yeah,
what you're trying to knock down is your viral load. So waiting for a good time to treat with OA may not be the answer if you've already got a viral load that's running around the colony.
yeah,
Or through your apiary. So that there's a lot of factors in making those assessments on when to treat, what to treat with, and that kind of thing. But I think if you find a treatment plan, use OA like a tool in your arsenal, find what fits your time management schedule and all that. I think you can be pretty successful with a
yeah.
few simple, management strategies.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of different management strategies, which I think is very good. Like my favorite for the time being is Apivar. I found some good success with it. Like I was doing some a little testing. What I did was I had a hive that I did not treat. It went into winter. It had a deep full of bees. It was a real strong, healthy hive, and I didn't treat it. But then my other hive, that's the same breed, same kind of thing. I did treat it with Apivar. The other hive that I didn't treat, it had a super on it, which I never ate it, so that I didn't ever eat the honey in the super, so I could have just went ahead and treated.
Hmm.
But I just didn't treat, and it also did act as a science experiment, see what's the difference between the one that's treated before winter or the one that is treated. So then once we went into winter, both the hives went in nice and strong, but the hive that I didn't treat kind of started to go down a little bit. So from they were supportive on like I'd say about 7 frames, good solid 7 frames. But then they kind of
Hmm.
got down to I'd say about two, maybe one. I'd say about 2 frames of
Oh wow.
bees. So then what I did was I took those bees and put them in a nuke. And then I
Hmm.
put everything in there because they had a little patch of brood, not big. The queen was still in there. Then right when I did that, I put some apivar in there. About whenever it was time to remove the apivar, that hive looks, ready to go. It looks like here soon they're about to be ready to put into a 10 frame box. So I think that's a real good experiment I like to share with a lot of people to kind of tell people how that might have not been the varroa mites, but from what I can see, it probably was. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't see once. I didn't see any American foulbrood or anything like that. It's nothing like that. Just nothing really. I didn't really see
Yeah.
anything
So
else. And,
so I do have a interesting question because I ran a
yeah,
experiment. Speaking of experiments, so do you do any mite washes checks, that kind of thing, when you do your treatments? What's
yeah,
your qualifications for your colonies?
yeah. So last year I actually started to do that. So one thing that some people may not know about me, and a lot of people do know about me, is that whenever when I was going into beekeeping and I never really treated, I kind of stayed treatment free. I'd say maybe let's just say treatment free for about 4 or 5 years, maybe even 6 years, because this is my seventh year. Last year was my first time treating because I had some Epivar strips laying around. I thought, hey, I may go ahead and start treating because before that, I just lost so many hives for some weird reason. And only my main guess is the varroa mite. So then, since then, I started to treat, and then just this year, I started to test. So what I really like to do is I like to shake a frame of good solid brood into a little bucket or maybe a 5 frame nuke and kind of bang it to one side. Get a scoop or two of bees. I'd say about 300 bees. I like to kind of sample. I don't count them. A lot of people do like to count the bees, so then they get a solid check on there and they know exactly how many bees. But I just like to guess, right? So then I shake it, and then how many ever mites are down there is whenever I decide to treat. So one of my hives is had about like 15, 17, 20 mites in it. It was, big insane mite count.
Hmm.
And that's the one I was treating with Apigard a little bit. And also what I was doing was I actually was doing a split with that hive. So I took the queen out. So they don't have a queen, they gotta raise a queen. So that kind of does like a brood. That kind of keeps the queen from laying. I'd say a queen brooding cycle. A lot of people do that for about a week or two. Keep the queen enclosed in like a little push-in queen
Hmm.
cager, so
Hmm.
she won't be laying. So this is what this resembles. I need to get more treatments because I still have to treat some of my other halves. But that have not yet to treat yet, just because I've been really busy doing like getting everything ready. But I am going to treat it because the mite count was pretty high. But that brood cycle that I kind of get did, took the queen out. That should knock the mites back just a little bit for the time being. So then here soon I'm going to treat them. So that's kind of like what I really like to do in testing. I do like to test before I treat. I like to test, treat, and test to make sure my Apivar strips worked. So here soon in the next, I'd say about in a day, maybe a few days, I'm going to go back out to my apiary because last week I took up my Apivar strips. And we had a lot of rainy days, so I was never able to get out there. Today it was rainy. Yesterday it was rainy. we've just been having these rainy days. So then,
Mhm.
I'm gonna get back out there and make sure my treatment works. So that's kind of what I like to do for testing. What about you? What's your thoughts on that?
So I am historically not the best advocate for correct testing.
Yeah,
Um, I should be. So here's what I do, and I'm working on it. I'm trying to get a lot better. So my process has always been, as I've been learning at this, I basically have a what I like to call like a witness board or something that gets slid in the front entrance. The Apame, it's real easy because they have that plastic pull out tray. So
yeah,
basically, at certain points in the year, throughout my regimen, if I haven't been to a yard in a while, every colony will get a pretty mild dose, but all about the same. Generally, this will happen either the springtime of the year or towards the later part of fall, so I can kind of get a status check on where we're at going into or coming out of winter. And the way that I check is I give it a day or two. I pull out the Apple tray and I kind of get a feel for how big the colony is, how many mites fell, that kind of thing. And so far I've fared pretty good in that. Now, it's a total guessing game, but my mindset behind that is I don't have to kill any bees to check to see if I'm killing mites to try helping the bees. I don't know. That whole testing process just seems a little odd to me, even though like that's what you're supposed to be doing. And I think
yeah,
it is good to know your numbers, which, for me, I feel confident enough to be able to look at how many drop from a OA treatment and go, all right, I've got this much brood. I've got, a smaller amount of brood. I had, maybe 40 of them fall from a colony that has a full, 7 frame or so of bees in it. There's those kind of things that I use to gauge. So this had me thinking, and I said, well, if I can do a sugar roll, and sugar rolls still kind of kill the bees, they end up pitching them
yeah,
out from what I've heard a few hours later. The alcohol washes and the Dawn dish soap definitely kill the bees. They give you
yeah,
really accurate results. So I got creative. I 3D printed a cap for mason jar. So I had a screen lid on a mason jar and I had a 3D printed cap with a stem on it. So
yeah,
I could treat that portion of bees. So my theory was, that I would be able to treat them, let them sit, even if it took the afternoon or whatever to get some sort of baseline number. If it was repeatable, then it was something that I could scale and, do those kind of calculations. And uh, you know, because I don't do washes very often at all, I went out, I harvested in fall from a very strong colony. I still had some brood in there. Pulled my half cup of bees, whatever it was, 300 bees, and basically, uh, I got the queen in the cup, which I shouldn't have done. I didn't know that's what happened until I got into my treatments. I was trying to find the upper threshold because my theory was in this cup of bees, if I was doing an alcohol wash currently, they would die anyway. So I think I hit them with 2 or 3 grams of OA in this isolated test chamber. And lo and behold, about 30 seconds in, they were all sitting kind of on the bottom of it. And I'm
yeah,
just kind of observing, just seeing what'll happen. And lo and behold, like something out of a horror movie, because it was all like foggy inside of the jar. The queen comes up out of the middle of the thing, and it was like, oh boy. So
yeah,
yeah, so I I lost one of my favorite queens because I I thought I looked a few times. I tried to be really careful and I lost it. So I've been a little slap shy of that experiment ever since. I
yeah,
didn't give it enough time because once I realized she was in there, I pulled her out and tried to revive her and there was no reviving her. But I feel like there's something there. I feel like there's some alternative to testing that's easy, can be easier for people. I feel like there's something there. It's just not a lot of people are pushing that and asking that question.
yeah,
Just because it's the normal, So I'm not fearful to run the experiments. I don't run them with every single colony at once because
yeah,
clearly I'm not good at experiments. But I think every beekeeper should experiment a little bit in their yard, with things that are safe and that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
experiments are definitely a good thing in my opinion. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what I do in my failed experiment. Failed so far. I'm gonna try it again this year,
Yeah.
but hopefully not with my queen.
Yeah. But that I think, like you're saying, I really do think any beekeeper, like even a small one, but as long I like to do some experiments, just small ones. I don't want to do every single hive because I don't really feel like I really want to put every hive on the line. But I do like to once in a while put in an experiment, see what the bees do. Like you're doing, with
Hmm.
the OA and all that different stuff. So I think that's really good.
Yeah, it definitely adds an extra twist to it. It's pretty neat. So what do you do to note the status of your colonies?
Yeah.
Do
So
you
that's one thing that I know a lot of beekeepers, want to know, and I hear a lot about it. So I guess I'd call that hive management. A lot of times,
Sure.
I like to go into my hives within 2 weeks, maybe even sooner. There's different days of it. Sometimes people like to go in a week. Sometimes I'll make a couple of trips out to the bee yard, but I
Hmm.
I only inspect a hive with. I'll probably leave a hive for about a week and a half and then come back and inspect. What I usually look for is eggs. Eggs, resemble that there's a queen there.
Hmm.
I also look for a good brood pattern in the queen. Like sometimes you'll have spotty, sometimes you'll have solid. One of my best halves is she's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite halves because the queen is a solid pattern. Otherwise, I have another queen that's really no good. She just doesn't really lay. So I went in there a few days ago and I couldn't find her because this queen sometimes will go on the sides of the boxes.
Oh
Sometimes
yeah.
will do
Yeah.
that. And I was checking each frame, and the first time whenever I located her, she was on a little frame. I was going to take a queen cage, put her in there, and take her off, and just give her the half toll test, whatever everybody likes to call it.
Yeah.
But whenever I set the frame down, I lost the queen. I didn't know where she went.
Hmm.
I guess she must have crawled back into the hive from what I can see. You know, maybe because
Hmm.
I am pretty good at spotting the queen. Sometimes I'll miss the queen, but I really do like to look for eggs and larvae and a good solid brood pattern. And along with that, I do like to see honey, stores, pollen. And if I don't see, I think most of the things that I like to look for is like a good queen. If you have,
Hmm.
make sure you have a good mated queen, because I think that's the problem with my queen that I'm talking about, that it's not laying good. I think that she might have not got mated good. Otherwise, some of my other queens that got mated on my land are doing fabulous. So I think it's just
Yeah.
all different.
How do you think that one is? Do you mark your queens? Do you have any idea
Yeah.
um how old she is?
I can say this, that I believe she's a 2-year queen, but she may be a 1-year queen because last year they may have swarmed. So sometimes I'll mark the queens. I did just mark a queen a few days ago, just because this queen that it's a smaller hive, like a 10 frame box, but I just added a super on top of it.
Hmm.
The hive is the queen in it. It's kind of harder to find. Just maybe my eyes, because she's a darker queen.
Hmm.
She blends in better. So what I did was I finally found her. I put her in this little thing and I marked her. I marked her a white color. I had some old. I really didn't follow a book saying this year and so on. The color means the year. I just had some. I had
That's
two.
like Greg Burns and his what is it, Pepto Pink? He does some bees. He's
Yeah,
got his Pepto Pink queens as his thing.
yeah. That's probably. I like to. I think what I'm gonna do is I have Russians and Italians bees. I'm thinking what
Hmm.
I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark my Russians white and my Italian queens as blue. So that just kind of gives me a
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
separation, so I'll know. So if I start selling queens, because this year I'm gonna be starting queen rearing, we're gonna see if it works out or not. But maybe it will. But that's what this year what I'm
Yeah,
gonna do. But
that's pretty neat.
that's what I like to do for that. What about you? What do you like about hive management, as we may call it?
Um, so generally speaking, I used to write on lids. That used to be a thing that I did. Then when I got the Appomates, we switched over to the rock thing. Um, and then I came across these uh these status indicators,
Yeah,
these things. Have you seen these?
from Jason Behind the.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep, I
I
just saw.
stuck one of these on my counties the other day, and honestly, I like these little things.
Yeah,
They really are just simple, and they fit the bill for what I need, and it gets hard for me because mom and I would go back in the bees, and we didn't have a standard thing to do.
yeah,
Like who knows what rotation a brick is or whatever, or she may do an inspection and forget to look at what position the brick was in before the brick got moved to do the inspection, that kind of deal. So these things are
yeah.
pretty nifty.
I
um
I saw some people interviewing Jason about it, and I met Jason and we talked for a second, and I saw him. I didn't we didn't talk about him, and I didn't get an interview because at Hive Life I wasn't able to do much interviews.
Hive
Just
life was crazy.
yeah, it
It
was
was
because I wasn't
crazy.
really able to get any kind of interviews because it was just so busy. I'm running around the whole place trying to meet people,
Hmm.
doing different things, so I wasn't able to do much interviews. And plus, I didn't have like a mic. I did one interview, but the audio was terrible because I didn't have a mic or anything. So next year, I'll be having mics and having different things to come along, so then I can do interviews. So that's gonna be pretty
It's a
interesting.
good idea. There's a lot of really good, really just sweet people that go down there. Just kind-hearted people who really are just all about bees. So
Yeah,
it is the perfect place to have the right camera set up to be talking to people and talking bees. I mean, it really is pretty outstanding.
definitely. So I got a question here from the Texas beekeeper.
Sure.
Um, okay, Rob, are those installation sleeve
Oh,
Instavate available on your site? I don't see them.
yeah. Let me hold on. Let me peek at what they're called real quick. Um, so I just went to our website and I clicked on shop, and they are called Instant Vap Apame washers. I think we we've got a search thing in the top left corner on the website, so
Yeah,
uh, you can track them down if you need to there.
yeah.
Um,
So explain to us what those are used for.
so those are actually pretty neat things. So they just slip on the end of the instant vap on the brass stem. The brass stem is removable if you break it or whatever. We've had one break so far. But anyway, it slips over it with a tight tolerance, and then you can take it over to your Apame and treat right through the front entrance. So the front entrances, they have like little hoops that's it's not perfect circles. It's kind of like a mouse guard kind of look to
Yeah,
it. And you can see right through those holes. You don't have to go through the bigger portals that are on the side. You can go through the little pieces, and really, it makes it so easy to treat the apame. And because it's PTFE, they're insulated. You're not going to worry about damaging something on your expensive colonies. And it's really just a protecting your investment type deal. And so far they've worked really good. And they're pretty affordable compared to our adapter plates used to be. I think they were like 100 and something dollars a plate, and you had to get a specific plate for every kind of Apame bottom board that you had. Uh, so they add up compared to $12 for a 2 pack of insulators uh, that really fit the bill. And I think in all reality, you get a much better treatment because it goes into a bigger cavity underneath the frames. It's a much more natural.
yeah, I get you. Because because a lot of beekeepers have Apame halves, and sometimes you can't fit that in because a lot of times the instant apps that y'all sell they can only go. You have to cut a hole in your wooden box because they can
Hmm.
go into the box, but they can't go into Apame halves. So it's good to have different options to resemble for that. So I think that's a very smart idea to have the little washer plates for Apame halves. That leads me into a different topic. So, what kind
Sure.
of halves do you like to use? Because I know you like Apame and
Hmm.
standard. Do you try any other kind of halves like Langstroth or not Langstroth, like long lang halves?
No,
Like
I want to get one of Ricky Rourke's Long Langs. I haven't gotten there yet. At some point, I'm gonna call him up and we're gonna figure out what to design one as, but one of my requirements will be that his wife paints it because she does a phenomenal job on all the boxes. Um, but I would like to get one at some point. That's probably the only other one that I would tinker with. Uh, but like I said, I went from woodenware. Um, I did a lot of tall 5 frames, so that was kind of how I got started in bees. My mentor does a lot of like tall nukes essentially. Um, so that was my first year or two, and then when the colonies got big enough, I went into 10 frame hardware. When I got into the 10 frame woodenware, I started I bought Amazon boxes, which really, as we all know, cheap boxes aren't really the best boxes. And I had issues with corners rotting out and failing too soon and the wood warping and all kind of stuff. So I got my first Apame, toyed with it for a while, and kind of made the decision that that was the way to go.
Yeah,
Um, I really like some of the setups on the Lone Langs, just because you can use them like a really big queen castle, which is pretty neat. And having a queen in a 2 frame compartment where if you get into whatever kind of trouble you find a hive that's queenless, you just slide that right in and you're ready to go. You kind of have queens on standby all the time. So I think there's a lot of benefit to be had about them. For me, having one big compartment just isn't practical because I've got a bunch of 10 frame hardware. But
yeah,
having, a bunch of small cavities where I can have a lot of queens going at one time if I choose, or pull the dividers out and have one big, piece, I think that's where the benefit comes in.
yeah. Because there's a lot of different half styles. Like, you have Rory halves, you have horizontal halves, you have flow halves. Now, this year we're going to be trying out some different things. From what I know, I'm not going to say for sure that we're going to use these, but we're going to try to build our own horizontal half. We had Ricky
Hmm.
Rourke on our live chat, and he agreed that sometime he'd sell me or give me the plans to build it. So, because we build our boxes, we build a lot of our equipment, like if you see in our videos, like those wooden nukes that look like Bob Benny's nukes, those are the
Hmm.
ones that we build.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yep.
The
Yep.
ones that have the entrance built in the box and that kind of thing. So we kind of got that idea from Bob Benny, but we kind of changed it up, you
Hmm.
know, and kind of did some different things on it. And then now there you go, we got ourselves a box, and we built that by ourselves. And we also build some of our bottom boards. Our first time building 10 frame wooden bottom boards, I was surprised how good it came out. I don't have it around here. It's in storage, but it came out pretty good. So if I wanted to, I could put it on the market and it'd go good and it'd sell pretty easy. So that's something good because that was our first try, and I
Yeah.
think I'm gonna use those bottom boards here soon. Those bottom boards are great. However, the boxes that we built, they're good too, but we do need to make some improvements on them. The next thing I'd say is we're trying out box joints. We made up a jig.
Hmm.
It worked okay.
Nice.
I'm surprised with that. The box joints did come out okay, but from what I like the rabbit joints. You know, instead of finger or dovetail, just because for us those are more easier to do. But dovetail joints are also good as well. So we're hoping to try out the horizontal hive, and we're thinking about because I've been keeping bees for about 7 years, and only been using wooden Langstroth hives. I never went into anything else. But we've been thinking about trying out the flow hive. We've been hearing all about that.
Hmm.
But we're just kind of we're I can't say much that we're going
Yeah.
to pull one
I
out.
I think they would be neat to experiment with. I think some people, I mean, in the bee community, they get kind of a bad rap just because people think that you can just plug bees in and not do anything to them, and they'll just you crack a valve and
Yeah,
you get honey. But I think their price point's a little high. Don't get me wrong, but I think it is neat. If you
it
can
is.
manage the colony correctly, I it's a very cool concept and it is very intriguing to me. So maybe at some point I'll pick one up just to experiment with.
Yeah,
In all honesty, but yeah, I mean as far as return on investment,
yeah,
I honey's not made of gold, so I don't know that there is a
yeah,
return on investment. It tastes like it, but anyway, it would just be a fun thing essentially, but I am very interested in that. I'm curious to see what somebody like yourself who's pretty versed in bees can do with one of them.
Yeah, because especially, that's one thing that, the only reason why they get a bad thing, bad rap, like you're saying, that people think that you can just, leave them there, turn a crank, and let all the honey flow. Over the 7 years of my beekeeping experiments, I've heard of the flow hive. We've been thinking, whenever we started, we saw them, we're thinking about getting one, but they're too expensive, so we've went with the Langstroth hive. We've done all the work. We've go into our hives. I mean, like, we've extracted the honey from with an extractor. I think a flow hive would be an interesting project to kind of figure out, see how it works. But even if anybody gets one, I would still suggest, to still go in them. Maybe, if you want to treat, it doesn't, even though it's a flow hive, I wouldn't say, just to leave it there and turn a crank or anything. But, that's one thing that a lot of times people will say, and that's the only reason why they get a bad rap. But I think they're pretty cool. I really do like the style of them. They're really nice. Of course, the budget is a little high, like everybody, like yourself saying, but they are a cool experiment to see how it
Yeah.
turns out.
And another
Yeah,
piece that kind of concerns me with them is, you look for your honey to be, well, the nectar to be capped and it to be honey and have a certain moisture level. So because you don't pull it out and kind of peek at your honey, I don't really know how you can dictate that the whole frame or the percentage of the box, is kind of squared away and ready to be harvested, and
right.
without it having too high of a moisture content and looking at, fermenting and that kind of stuff too soon. Um so yeah, that'll be interesting to see how it goes. So I've heard you mention about queen rearing a few times.
Yeah.
Um what are your goals with that? What are you looking to do there?
Yeah. So main thing I've been thinking about is different methods to try that out. The first one I'd say, let the bees do the work, kind of take the queen out, let them raise how many ever queen cells they need, take them out, put them in an incubator, let them hatch. Have a video on that incubator setup.
Mhm.
It was a while. I'm
I
sure a
saw
lot
that.
of people watch it, and that's a method that I really liked. I'm probably going to try it out. I here soon because I know there's a lot of people in Tennessee, Alabama, Louisiana starting. So one of my biggest houses has tons of drones. So now I'm seeing drones. That kind of gives me a hint that okay, maybe a good time to start queen rearing. I mean, because so in the next week or two, I'm gonna be starting grafting because this is my first year ever doing it, and I'm really excited. So we're going to see how that turns out. So for the first thing I'm planning to do, all right now I'm still trying to get things figured out. So this isn't like a definite plan, but I'll know once I start. So what I'm planning to do is, have like a starter alone hive and a finisher alone kind of a thing. So my strongest hive, I'll probably take the queen out. Or, there's a lot of different methods I could do. You have the starter slash finisher. I may do
Mhm.
that method for the first time, see how it goes. If it goes well and I want more queens, then I can expand to a starter alone, finisher alone. That's what I call it at least. There's probably
Right,
never,
right, right. Yep.
that's just the simplest
Have you
thing
seen
that,
the what's it, the cloak board method?
yep,
Have you seen that one?
yeah,
I got a cloak board. I ran one of them probably 2 years ago now. That was the last time that I did any queen rearing, and it went pretty good. I was pretty happy with it. The hard part with me rearing queens is just time. You gotta have a set schedule. You gotta be able to like guarantee that you can get in the bees at a certain time and a day
yeah,
or two before to make your split so you have a place to put queens and queen cells. And there's a lot of time invested in the art of making your queens.
yeah,
So yeah, it's pretty
definitely.
pretty interesting. So yeah, I wish you luck with that. I had a blast with it. I watched one of Cayman's videos, and from that one video I was like, oh yeah, I could do this. I think I watched How to Graph from, I think it was JC's Bees. He had a really good video about it. And then basically I turned around, watched a video with Cayman, and he had like a 5 frame nuke that he was using as a basically a starter and a finisher.
like a starter.
It's been a while since I've watched that video, but I watched it many, many, many times and was like, this is what I'm doing, because I didn't have a ton of colonies at the time. So my percentage of hives that I could risk was so small, you know. So for me to
Yeah,
dedicate a full 10 frame hive to be able to make queens was very hard for me. But, you know, playing with a 5 frame nuke essentially that I just overpopulated with bees and made sure there were no, you know, eggs or larvae in there, and no queen, that was easy. So that's what I did, and I had really good results actually. I was pretty happy with how that went, um, out of just a 5 frame nuke. But the hard part is not having them overheat, not having them, you know, essentially starve because it's all bees and you got to keep feeders on them. There's a lot of little variables and intricacies to getting it right. Um, and you know, at this point, I've got the right amount of bees for the amount of hardware I have. So maybe
yeah,
this year I may dip my hand in making some queens from stock that I've obtained throughout the last few years. Just to kind of replenish some of the older colonies, that kind of thing, or maybe some weaker producing colonies.
yeah. My plan for trying to raise some queens is kind of I'm gonna raise off on best stock. You know, one that strong hive Italian one that I really like, and requeen some of my other halves that I may not like the halve I was talking about that doesn't have a good queen. I want to requeen that halve and start requeening some of my halves. I'm gonna leave some of the halves how they are with the queens, just
Hmm.
some of them that I don't like the queen in. So I think it's queen ring's definitely a really, from what I can see, I was watching the same video of Cayman Reynolds doing that, and I really thought that was pretty interesting. So that's probably the method I'm
Hmm.
gonna go with. So then after that, after I get done doing that, if I do like that method, I'm gonna stick with it for a little bit
Hmm.
because this is my first year doing it, and
Sure.
I'm hoping to do a few things. And somewhere I had some grafting tools that I had. Here we go, like this grafting tool. This is just one of the basic ones.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yep, yep, yep.
Where you're able to just kind of sweep in with your thing and take the little larvae, and it has this little lever mechanism. You can don't let the camera to see that, but kind of
Yeah.
like that. I really,
Yep.
it's one of the most popular Chinese grafting tools on Man Lake. It's pretty interesting, to do that kind of raising queens. I think the main thing is probably timing, but we're homeschooled, so we kind of were able to have the time, build in a time to do that. So I don't think it's gonna be a big problem for us to be on time and scheduling for it. But I know for a lot of people, it can be very challenging to get that schedule, and because you have to go back and make sure not a virgin queen doesn't hatch. If that happens, then that virgin queen's gonna destroy all your other cells, or if two hatch at the same time, they're gonna fight it out. And whichever one wins that fight, they're gonna destroy all the other cells that haven't hatched. So
Yeah, it's not a crazy process. All your hard work can go away just like that.
yeah,
It's really it's interesting. I really enjoy the challenge of it.
yeah,
And being able to make local stocks and refine your genetics as you go along, really is quite the awesome process.
yeah, you definitely can be, especially whenever you're raising queens, or you there's a lot of things you can do. You can make nukes and all these different things. So that's another thing I want to ask you. So is there anything else besides your vaporizers and OAS things? Is there anything else that you like to make money with, like maybe nukes or
Yeah, so
queens? Or,
I've in years past I had sold a handful of nukes. I mean, that was something that we did primarily before vaporizers. When the vaporizers picked up, I started getting into a point where I had not enough time with running the business to orchestrate raising queens successfully early in the season, early enough to be able to have strong enough colonies to be able to sell nukes. Because in Maryland, we only have but so big of a flow early on in the year that's really worth anything. And once you miss that, you're kind of just the bees produce just enough to kind of get by. At least in my area, there are other parts of Maryland that they do great. There are other states really close they do great, but in my area, you kind of got to be on the money right out of winter. So um, I did pretty good. I mean, I only sold maybe half dozen or so nukes, something like that. But for me, for going from 0 to 6, that was a huge accomplishment, and it was fun to do. I got, a few people didn't have bees and were starting with bees. I have, guys who I still talk to and hang out with that I've sold bees to. It's pretty neat. So that's one of the things that we do. I started a honey vending machine business at
Mhm.
one point in time. So in theory it made a lot of sense, right? So I took a vending machine that had a um 300 slots essentially. So 300 slots by a dollar, you make $300 if it empties. So if you sell $10 a pound, you put it on 1 pound jars, theoretically that $300 machine is now a $3,000 machine if it empties. So
Mhm.
then I put one in a local flea market that has a Amish market area in it, and I let it stew for a month or two, and I think it only made like $100 or $200. And we went by, and things started to slow down, and I realized that in my math, with it sounding so great, I realized I was the only person really that ate that much honey to make it profitable.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting out of it because it just wasn't profitable, at least in my area. In theory, it makes a lot of sense and it is a good service to the communities. I do think that there's something there as far as being able to be profitable with the right constraints and the right locations and all that stuff. But I did end up getting out of that business just because it wasn't profitable. And again, time is always a big thing. Another thing that I've recently gotten into is helping other beekeeping entrepreneurs refine their products, bring their products to life, take them from an idea or napkin sketch and turn them into a product. Uh, in 3D modeling, I do a lot of 3D printing. As you can see back here, I've got a whole fleet of
Yeah.
printers and stuff. I've got CNC mills off to my left here. So I do a lot of product design. I help companies refine their process to make their business more profitable. Specifically within the bee space, that's kind of my thing. So anything business related as of right now is all beekeeping structured. I have a few projects that I've been working on that really are pretty neat. Like one of them was the honey straw machine from Anthony's Bees. I've been working with him, helping him refine his product and make it a lot more suitable and market ready essentially. So he had a problem with selling out because they were in such high demand, but he couldn't make them fast enough. So we were able to actually refine his build time and bring a lot higher quality of a product to the table that's easier to clean and functions a little easier. Just to be able to provide a better service. It's him and his son who run that business, and yeah, so it's those kind of things that I do on the side besides vaporizers that I do as
Yeah.
a business. So and then I have the like we'll sell some honey. I'll sell some bees if I get too many colonies and not enough Apame boxes where I'm putting them in woodenware. I'll sell some boxes and that kind of thing, sell some bees to try and trim the numbers down. But that's kind of as it goes through the year. We'll see how many swarms come off of things. I don't really um, do anything in particular to make bees try not to swarm because it is a natural process and it's my easy way of doing splits when I'm out of time.
Yeah.
Making them a little tight in the box, and I get another box of bees out of it. So with the right planning, you can do pretty good with it. So there's a lot of ways that we kind of do things to make money because if you can make money at things, you can provide better services to people. You can have more bees. You can do it in honesty.
Yeah.
So I love every bit about it.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of different things in
Going
beekeeping
across
to
the
make
pond.
money. Like you can sell nukes. If you want to, you can
Yeah.
sell packages, queens. There's so many different things that you can sell. So I think it's a very good thing. When we started beekeeping, we actually kind of, I'd say we kind of looked for honey selling, and it did make us some good money, like off the side, because it was just like a sideline, really small sideline business. We didn't have any house. We just made a little income, and have all that different stuff. But it's just kind of what we do. And now I'm hoping to actually start selling some queens this year. I don't know about this year. This year's my test run. If I get some queens
Sure.
of my best stock, I'll sell them. But if I don't, then that's fine. Next year I can do that. Dan Weaver asked, Rob, could you design a lower cost bottling machine?
Um, so in theory, yes. So one of my things with making things lower cost. Now, it's not to say that lower cost is not always obtainable,
Yeah,
but lower cost most times, if the market generally has a same price product, generally a lower cost means lower quality. So then it's basically the old a low price pair of work boots every year, or you can invest and buy, a good pair of work boots every 5, right? So there's two
yeah,
different ways to go about it. Um, I really haven't gotten any experience in the bottling stuff yet, just because we don't do that much. So I just have a bottling tank with a dripless tap on it, and that's how I bottle my honey. For what we do, that is sufficient. It sounds like he has a lot more honey than I do. So I'm willing to entertain any kind of, Dan, if you want to reach out to me, it's just the larabis@gmail.com. Uh, if you have any ideas that you would like to present about that, I'm always all ears for new ideas and new innovation to bring to the um I have new ideas and innovation to bring to the bee market. So yeah, I definitely, I like to hear people's like, hey, this is what I'd like to see on this. This is one of my pet peeves with it, and that kind
yeah,
of thing. So and I encourage people all the time to shoot me an email. It doesn't have to be a specific thing. It could be any kind of idea, and we can see if there's something there. Sometimes people have an idea and don't know how to make it a product. And they're this close away in that instance from having a business, and you know, and there's a
yeah,
lot of potential there.
yeah, definitely. Next thing before we end off, I wanted to talk about is whenever you're, buying bees or you're buying honeybees, especially for a beginner or maybe you're somebody like me. Do you, Rob? Do you ever like to catch swarms? Catch your own bees, or what do you like to do with that kind of thing?
So out of the gate, I normally recommend to people to get nukes. If they're really starting out where they only have a colony or two, that's generally where I point people to, because theoretically it's like a plug and play bee colony, right? They're already established, they're already present, they're doing their thing, but it really comes down to, um, you know, it, there's a few factors there. So if they're restarting and they have drawn comb, then you may lean them toward a package, if they have a little bit of experience.
Yeah,
And then, if they're on a shoestring budget, or they want to find some local stock, and kind of the luck of the draw as far as when they get bees. If they have the woodenware and they're just like, hey, when the bees come, then there's a very natural way to go about that and catch your own swarms and all that stuff. If you got a lot of beekeepers or feral colonies in the vicinity, that's the way to go about it. In my neck of the woods, there's generally not um, that many other beekeepers. Where it's very abnormal when I tell people, oh yeah, I have a bee business, and they're like, what? Like, it's that kind of interesting around me as far as
yeah,
beekeeping. So so it's just the area. We're just outside of Baltimore. It's not uh we have more houses than we do open land, and that's just the kind of reality there. Um
yeah,
but yeah, so normally when people get into it, I put them to nukes. Um and yeah, but people do all kind of interesting things. I know a lot of people who, wanted to catch their first swarm, and that was their sign kind of to start doing bees. So they didn't have all they had to do was build the boxes. They didn't have to pay for any bees. They got local stock naturally, and and that's just how it was. And
yeah,
I know a couple people have done pretty good at that.
yeah, definitely. Because actually did just catch a swarm this year. Bet many people you might have saw the video. It was from
Hmm.
I'm really from a 5 gallon bucket, and it could have been a swarm from this year, but a lot of time I think a lot of people thought it was a swarm from last year. because they already had some comb in there, so it might have been a swarm from last year. But even whenever it was a swarm, or a lot of people said it was like a mini cutout because it had some comb. I had to cut out some comb in the 5 gallon bucket. It was a decent sized swarm. Right now, they're doing pretty good. I have them in a 5 frame nuke. I'm feeding them 1-to-1 sugar water and all that kind of stuff to kind of get the queen laying more. So I think a lot of times I really do like to suggest a beginner to a nuke because I've had a little experience with packages, but from what I know, I'm not a really big fan of packages. They do okay, but whenever it's just a 5 frame nuke, to me is a little more better because you have usually you'll have pollen, you have a good solid queen, a good brood pattern, and you have most of everything you need in that 5 frame nuke. Then all you
Hmm.
got to do is 5 frames, put them in your 10 frame, put maybe a bucket feeder or something on them, and then you're kind of good to go. Maybe leave them for a week or two. Come back, do whatever you need to do, and I really do like nukes. But whenever you're kind of more experienced, I'd say about your second year, first year. I know there's a lot of people who catch swarms to get into beekeeping, like you're saying, but generally, I know a lot of beekeepers will start catching or moving swarms about second, third year of keeping bees. We've caught a few swarms, but they never really did good. But this
I
is our
I caught
first.
a swarm yesterday, um, which was really unexpected, and it's pretty early in the year for us to be catching a swarm. Um, and yeah, I have a videographer that we started shooting videos for our YouTube and stuff, and our Facebook, some marketing material, but as well as mom and I and the bees. I like documenting that journey. And and as we were walking back there, we were like, "Oh, there's bees everywhere. We're having a swarm currently." And
Mhm.
they made it just through the fence line and into the neighbor's bush where they generally land all the time. And so we got some pretty awesome footage collecting that swarm back. So it's neat.
Yeah,
I really like swarms. I like that whole process. Just they're kind of finding their way, figuring it all out. It's pretty cool.
yeah. I think it's very cool to see how a swarm works. I think it's very interesting. The last topic I wanted to discuss before we end off is whenever you're doing your bees, do you ever like to and maybe right in spring or maybe going into fall, do you like to feed anything, or what's your ideas on feeding in that matter?
So this past year, I started with the I believe it was high fructose corn syrup. I believe.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I was doing 1-to-1 sugar water. This year with the high fructose corn syrup, uh, I feed them pretty good. I also um, don't harvest as much honey as most do. A lot of people try and trim down all the access so they can sell the honey, and then they'll supplement with sugar water to get them back up to where they need to go. Um, I tend to manage where I pull off what I deem as excessive, so I don't have to feed as much and risk as much with the bees as they overwinter. But that being
Yeah.
said, coming into fall, I will feed them pretty heavily, so they fill in any open kind of spots. And I'll put a little uh, high fructose corn syrup on there pretty late to where if they need it, it's there. But the odds of them actually taking it because it's hardening up a little bit is pretty slim. So it doesn't really ever harden. It just gets a little like it's like how honey crystallizes. It's something very, very similar. It gets like a texture to it. So yeah, so that's what I do. In years past, I would do um, like a quilt box essentially, but well, I think they call them like sugar shims or something. But I would
Yeah.
take that and I would put 10 pound on every colony back when I used to pull all the honey off. Be 10 pound on every colony. I put 5 pound in, a pollen patty in the middle, and then the other 5 pound on top. And
Yeah.
my theory was at that time sugar was so cheap, it was cheap insurance. And by the time they chewed through the edge and got to the pollen patty, we were close to springtime anyway for them to be on their pollen. So I've transitioned away from that because I now have the mindset of if the if the pollen is inside of the colony, I potentially giving it to them a lot sooner than a plant could, right? So they could crack into it in December when we got another 2 months before anything starts to bloom. So
Yeah.
what I do now is I have a pollen feeder that's out just about all year long, and with pollen sub in it. And if there's nothing flowing, they're all in that feeder. When they don't need it, they're not in the feeder. And so I kind of let them pick on the pollen side, and I kind of just make sure that they have excess uh, of sugar water or feed of that nature going into winter.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because I like to feed 1-to-1 sugar water, because I've actually started to feed 1 gallon buckets for that, and that's been working out pretty good also. So that's definitely pretty good. So we got a question here from Sean. He asked, Rob, what temp
Yeah,
does your
I just
in
typed back in chat to him. Sorry. Yeah, it's just 400 degrees. So our wall powered units run a little bit cooler than the instant VAP. Uh, there's been a lot of tests coming out trying to dictate what the perfect temperature is for treatments. Um, the instant VAP set a little higher because of some of the tests that have been shown. Um, in all honesty, the 445 Fahrenheit that runs with the different heaters it has, it can sustain that pretty long, and that's been kind of the industry standard for the past decade, basically. So 230 Celsius has been what everybody runs forever. So we're in the US, we sell Fahrenheit units. That's what we do. And, so it's just an equation Celsius to Fahrenheit. And a lot of people get mixed up on that. They'll try and turn their US instant VAP down to 230 Celsius or vice versa. So there's that kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. Well, we're here in an hour. I appreciate you, Rob, coming on and talking for us for an hour, a little more than that. I
Yeah.
think everybody enjoyed it, and I appreciate it. And we learned a lot. I learned a lot tonight, so I appreciate you. And if anybody would like to check out Rob and his YouTube channel, the Rob Bees, I put a link in the live chat. You can go check him out if you don't know who Rob is, but if you do, that's great. But I appreciate Rob, and thanks for coming on here.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me on. This was pretty informational. I had a blast.
Yeah, me too. Well, thanks guys for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.